what, 90% of startups out of the Valley now are strong AI?
More.
More than 90.
Yeah. It's just hard to get funding if you don't have an AI story.
Like, can you have a good tech culture without a successful sales team?
You can't just be a relationship sales guy. Like you have to bring something to the table. In the short term, these things are overhyped and underrealized. In the long term, they are absolutely understated. And I think AI, I think the internet, I think they're all just massively understated.
Thank you for tuning in to another What the Future podcast. Now, in the first 4 episodes, we had 4 CEOs and founders from very promising early stage AI startups, and we learned a lot. One thing that we've learned is customer adoption is still slow, which is obviously going to impact tech sales. So it got me thinking, why is this? I started talking to a bunch of people in my network, and I was having some incredible conversations. So I was thinking, why not just transfer those conversations, but make it into a podcast and share it with others? So this podcast will be a little more casual. It won't be as structured, and it'll give us the opportunity just to have a normal conversation with two people in the industry. So the first one is no stranger to the Silicon Valley, Brian O'Shea. He's an incredible sales leader, and I trust his opinion a lot. We're going to talk about everything from AI, startups, tech sales, and of course, humanity as well. Thank you for tuning in. Hope you enjoy the show. We got to change the game. Before we get started, man, how are things going?
Good.
Are you interviewing your face off?
Dude, it's crazy. I get easily 2 calls a day.
Oh, that's great. So you got a lot of options.
Yeah, it also means like you don't know what's real, what's not.
And that's what we're going to talk about.
But it's given me, like, I was talking to a company yesterday, and I'm like, how do you compare against these guys? And they're like, never even heard of 2 of them. I'm like, yeah, this is what these guys do. Yeah, they're direct competitors. And they just don't know. Like, it's crazy. There's so many.
And are they all AI?
They're all AI.
Would you say basically, what, 90% of startups out of the Valley now are strong AI?
More
than 90.
Yeah. It's just hard to get funding if you don't have an AI story.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's part of the discussion I want to have is like, everyone is talking about AI. So like, for the last 3 decades, you and I have seen this where a technology comes out, like, let's just say, deduplication, data domain comes out, does dedupe. And then all these big guys, they kind of reverse engineer the dedupe into their solution, right? And I feel like what's happening now is you got all these OEMs that are creating AI agents or AI solutions for their product. It's not a platform of AI, but it's a feature of AI inside of their platform. And it almost feels like you have to have some kind of an AI story, which to me, does it really matter? Like right now, if you're buying into someone's AI story, like a current manufacturer, a big company, a server vendor, storage vendor, networking vendor, or whatever, aren't you really buying into what the future capabilities of their AI solution is? Because what they can do now,
it's not even, you can't even compare it to what it'll be like in the future. And really, I think you're spot on. Like, you have to make a bet on who's most capable of executing. And look at certain companies, I'm like, like ServiceNow is executing pretty well. And, if you'd asked me 2 years ago, would you bet on ServiceNow? I'm like, right. No way. ServiceNow is executing really well.
Really well. I think they're gonna crush in the AI game. They also bought MoveWorks, which what was it, 2 billion? Great acquisition, great exit for MoveWorks, but also great acquisition by ServiceNow.
They've been on a buying spree, actually. They bought a couple other companies. They buy recently. There were I really liked the company. They were kind of an AI native CRM company. Logic, Logik.
Okay. What do they
Yeah,
do?
it's a Salesforce competitor.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So
Wait a minute. ServiceNow bought a Salesforce competitor?
ServiceNow bought a Salesforce. Today it's a CPQ, um,
And what's
and
a CPQ?
configure price quote. So you want to, like, you have a multi SKU solution, data domain. You've got your controller and then your bays of storage.
HBA, NICs, cables,
Exactly. Yeah,
support.
exactly. And then so you can configure the whole thing, various different part numbers to make a solution. You can quote it, and it's going to spit out a proposal too. These guys I really like these guys, super smart. So I'm stoked for them, and I think it's a good move for ServiceNow.
What does that do to the salesperson
Um,
and engineering? Because like typically engineering and architects are the ones, you know, creating the bombs.
yeah. So what used to be like, I don't know if you've ever configured a symmetrics quote, or if you've ever seen a symmetrics
Oh
quote
yeah.
configured.
Yeah. I hated selling it. But
Yeah, it's like 7 pages long. And you're like, the shittiest part was when a customer would be like, what is this part number? I don't know, dude, but you're not paying for it anyway. It's a $0.
Right.
Like, so instead of having to have like a couple engineers figure out how to quote a solution for you, you can do it. It's kind of automated through that process. And it is actually one of these things that AI lends itself really well to, because you can set specific parameters and then just be like, all right, go with these.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move some of this shit behind me. I thought I'd get it.
Ah, no worries.
Well, I remember Chris giving me shit back in the day. So,
Yeah. Well, that's Chris.
is he at Pure?
Yeah. Yep. He's
Yeah,
at Pure, and he's loving it. Total fanboy of Pure.
He kind of always was, right?
Oh yeah. 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 Because like, dude, when he and I were selling Pure in the early days, we were selling the crap out of it, and our customers loved it, and they still love it. It's just like, okay, now to me, yeah, I don't want to minimize what Pure has done in the market. They've had an incredible impact, and how many people can come into the storage industry and become a multi-billion-dollar company. It's just it's a total W. But at the same time, they made storage simple. They made it cost effective.
The evergreen model is crazy.
Yeah. And what's funny is all the other storage vendors have been trying to follow that lead.
Yeah.
But no one's done it as good as they have.
Well, it was really the architecture was built before the model was, and all these people are trying to chase the model post architecture.
Yeah.
Right. Like, so Cos came up with the idea of evergreen storage, but he also came up with the architecture initially.
Yeah.
And so it's like, you can't have the architecture, you can't have the business model fall, or you can't do the business model and then try and modify the architecture after the fact. You have to have the architecture that lends itself to the business model.
Yeah.
And Pure was just unique in that regard.
Yeah. Oh, dude. And like, this is the thing to me though, and we'll get into this too when we start really getting into it. What's going to happen with infrastructure with it? Like, where do we make money? And it's interesting. I was watching Jensen yesterday on whatever thing that he was on, and his basic comment was, I mean, obviously right now NVIDIA's crushing it, with AI, but he was basically saying how energy is going to be the number one most important thing, but the second part is, he was saying just the amount of infrastructure that is going to be needed is going to be absolutely massive. Which is interesting to me because like I've been selling infrastructure my entire career. And it's, when people are saying, oh, it's going to get commoditized, what's going to get commoditized now with AI and infrastructure? What part of that equation will get commoditized?
Yeah, I think there's a few different things that can get commoditized, but I also do think there's efficiencies coming to bear in the market today
Mm-hmm.
that are reducing not the dependency, but the scale of GPUs and significantly reducing the power consumption. And so I think, yes, the power is still going to be the bottleneck for the next 3, 4, 5 years potentially,
Mm-hmm.
and maybe quite a bit longer than that. But I think, and in the U.S., you've got to close that gap with somewhere between solar and natural gas, probably, because it's going to take so long to bring nuclear online. But I genuinely think like we talked about this before. In the short term, I think some of this stuff is a bit overblown. In the long term, I think it's understated.
I agree with that. I agree with that.
It's like just like the internet. If you looked at the internet in 1999, 2000, you're like, okay, dude, the hype is just crazy around us. Yeah. And the infrastructure being rolled out to support it, like dark fiber everywhere, like around, you were here at that point in time, right? Like, oh yeah, all the rooms were being dug up for dark fiber. Yep. It's like way more bandwidth than you needed at that point in time. And then, totally, years later, it's like, oh yeah, well, actually the internet was understated. It's dying.
That is the unintended consequences of technology. We create something, but then there is something that holds us back from getting the absolute value out of the tech. And I think, the energy piece is going to be interesting too, man. I don't know. I think it's going to be longer than 5 years. And I don't know, I'm not an energy expert, but from what I'm hearing is like America's going to have to do a tremendous amount of innovation and figure out partnerships in order how to, get that much energy.
Yeah, I always bet on innovation, and I think there's a path where you see these small modular reactors, and you're going to see them in like hundreds of them around the country, and it'll follow the path of inference, right? Like where you have POPs today, you might have an SMR. I don't know. Yeah. Every time I'm like, oh, that's a catastrophic bottleneck in tech, I feel like a couple years later, it's like, oh, we stopped talking about what happened. Oh, there was just an innovation that took care of it.
Yeah.
Sometimes like the Big Bang stuff, I don't know if you remember, but remember the Segway came out and people were like, oh, dude, this is like the biggest thing since fire. It's like nothing. Like the only impact it had was on mall cops.
Yeah.
And then and maybe like your occasional tourist attraction. And then other stuff comes around. And it's like over time, you're like, oh my God, that had just such a profound impact. Like, the iPhone comes out. I mean, I was pretty content with my BlackBerry, but then the iPhone came out. It was like massively disruptive.
Totally.
I just wanted to be able to play Frogger on the plane. So I switched to the iPhone.
Right.
But like, there's so much more impact. Like, dude, you didn't think that you'd stop watching the news for the weather person because of the iPhone, but like that happened, right? Like, yeah.
Right.
Wait, just 5 more minutes, honey. I gotta see what the weather is like tomorrow. Like, dude,
unintended consequences, dude.
But that's totally that's these platform plays, and I think like you can say mobile is a platform, which for sure it is, but like the iPhone in itself is a micro platform. I just think there's these platform plays that are always understated, right? There's these hype cycles, and the hype cycle, like, you and I came out of school right around the same time. It's like the what was it? The Y2K bug. I sold so much infrastructure in my first job because all these people were like, oh, yeah, when on January 31st, 1999, or December 31st, 1999, like the world is going to come to an end from a tech perspective because all the clocks on the computers are kind of set to the 1900s. It's like, dude, that was absolutely nothing. It was just such a blip. It was the segue. But then the internet, like everyone knew the internet, the really smart people knew the internet was going to be an absolute game changer. It just kind of seeped into our lives. And if you look back, it's like, just look back in, have you seen that video that it's like what school was like in 1990?
No.
And it's like no cell phones, no, like it's this guy with a camcorder walking around. First of all, kids were a lot happier in 1990. But what, everyone's talking to each other, no one's heads down in their hand. Like it's just so, society has changed 180 degrees in that time frame. Obviously we've had front seat for that, but it's just like, like you've heard it said thousands of times. In the short term, these things are overhyped and underrealized. In the long term, they are absolutely understated, right?
Totally.
And I think AI, I think the internet, like, and obviously they all build upon each other. I think they're all just massively understated.
You also just hit on something that, is very top of mind for me. And it's one of our three, we at Future Connect, we focus on AI, tech sales, and humanity. So I just feel like people are becoming less and less human. And many people don't argue it. They don't argue it. Even for me, I'm guilty. I am so addicted to my phone. I have to turn off apps. I have to force myself not to get on there. But the impact of it is huge. And it's not something that like we can hide. When social media came out, accelerated by smartphones, did we know the impact that was going to have on our children? Maybe we were thinking this is going to bring people more together, socially, community. And then there was this unintended consequence of it. Now with AI, I think this needs some serious consideration as a society, as a community, as a human on this earth. We know it's coming. We understand some of the impacts it's going to have. There's a lot that we don't know. But in that ambiguity, I'm really worried. I am more worried about the human side of it. You just touched on it. One of the things that I've been talking about with my friends has been how the family dynamics have changed. Remember how our parents would be like, oh, you know what it was like when we were growing up? I had to wait this long in the bus and I had to do that and I had to do that. And we'd be like, oh, God, what a drag. I keep hearing the same story. And now we're telling our kids similar stories. I didn't grow up with an iPhone. You guys don't understand what this is like. You guys, all these streaming apps, everything is now. DoorDash, just DoorDash it. Can't you just DoorDash some Chick-fil-A? So in that whole technology boom that we're experiencing, we're going to experience with AI, I feel like humans are going to become more and more depressed. Mental health is going to be even a bigger deal. We're not going to be in touch with humanity. I see it in our kids now, kids in their 20s. I see it in the industry now. Kids that grew up with the phone, went through COVID, and it's not their fault, right? I just want to be clear. It's not their fault. But there's anxiety there. There is this inherent anxiety that is just lingering there. And I feel so bad for them. But they are a product of the environment that they grew up in, and we have created it. So you're welcome, Gen Z.
It's so fun. I have a lot of family and friends that have had their own kind of psychological issues. I remember talking to a therapist. I said it was specifically around OCD, but it's probably applicable towards a lot of these things. And I was like, do they have a lot of OCD on the Serengeti when the cheetah is chasing them? Like, it's just not a thing, right? I mean, when you have these existential things, where am I getting my next meal? How am I going to survive? Like all these things, like that is, but when you have an abundance of everything, then it's like, it's all available to you, including all the anxieties.
Absolutely.
And it's, when you see, the other thing is you see everyone else around you, everyone is visible to you. Like their best image on the internet is visible to you. And it's like, okay, how do I stand out? Well, so you get more radical behavior. You get people doing weirder things to try to stand out. There's I heard someone talk about the narcissism of small distinctions. I'm a vegan. Well, I'm a vegan, but I only eat paleo, and like, you know, like you have these things like, okay, you're standing out more than me. Cool.
Yeah.
You know, it's like, so I think it's just harder for teenagers want to be unique and stand out a little bit. It's harder to do that when you see all these people, all these different personalities online.
Right. And it's all online. So the other part of that is, how do you fix it? And in my opinion, I'm not suggesting we go back into the office. Like, people that are doing that, work from home, I think you're fighting. I mean, you know, go back into work. I think you're fighting a trend that doesn't need to be fought. I think what you need to do is create a culture that is more aligned with the world today. The reality is, more mothers are working now than ever, right? And they got flourishing careers. So now you got many families that have two parents at home that are working. That wasn't the case when we were growing up. There was, but it wasn't as much. And now with the younger generation, they have a lifestyle that they want to live. I think you have to give them some of that flexibility. However, what I do think needs to happen is we still need to get together. We still need to have fun together. Like, the fun has been just taken out of work. So I ask this question all the time. Like, can you have a good tech culture without a successful sales team? And when I say a sales team, I don't mean just the sales rep. I mean the architects, the engineers, the inside sales, the maintenance renewals people, every business development reps, everybody that is aligned with sales. Are they, for the most part, feeling that they are successful? I'll tell you, at NetApp was almost impossible not to have a great culture from 98 to 2002 when I was there, because NetApp was just crushing, you know? And I've been thinking about that. How much of it is attributed to the fact that NetApp as an organization, company, technology was thriving, right? I got there and the stock split twice within 3 months. It was, or 6 months. I was
crazy.
Blew my mind, right? And how much of it was because of the fantastic leadership? Mendoza is a total stud, and he totally created that culture. But what was his mantra? It was a human culture. It was a people first culture. That was the kind of leader that he wanted to be. Now, there's no leadership like that. Like, you're not gonna.
It's harder to find, for sure.
It's very hard to find. What I am seeing is people, especially in the middle management layer, coming in, and they're getting the job because they're going to be the ball busters. They're going to be the ones, we need this person to whip this sales team into shape. You think that shit works? That doesn't work.
I think you can have a metric-based approach and still lead with hearts and minds. Mm-hmm. And the problem is, and some of the legends of tech sales actually did that. You know, John McMahon, Bill Scannell, those are people that I had some exposure to. They were absolutely fanatical about metric-based selling. They were process-based, but they were also, you'd run through walls for these people. And a lot of people take the metrics and the process, but they don't try and capture the hearts and minds like these other leaders do. Mm-hmm. And it's like, I don't think you can have one without the other. And by the way, going back to the office thing, I dispute that. I think you and I take this for granted because we've been doing this for over a quarter century, which let that sink in for a second. But we've had great office cultures. We've benefited from this. We've learned from the gray-haired people. Now we are the gray-haired people. I know, maybe more than you, clearly. But I think, we've got this generation of kids coming out of college, and like you and I played in the street more than we played on a structured team. Right. These kids all had structure throughout their life. They went from, baseball practice to dance to whatever. It's all structured. And then we're going to be like, okay, here's your laptop, work from home. That's not going to work, especially for these kids. right?
Yeah.
These kids didn't know how to play by themselves their entire life, and now we're just gonna mail them a laptop and say, "Figure it out." This is just not gonna work. I think.
Yeah.
Now, I do think there's a happy medium.
That's a good point.
I think the 669 thing is bananas. I think,
What's
that's
that?
not. It's we're gonna work 6 days a week, 9 hours a day, kind of thing. I'm butchering it. It's something more radical than that. But it's like I'm in the office 6 days a week, and we're working. It's probably more than 9 hours, but I don't know
Yeah,
how to
dude.
make that.
Well, I just feel like it from a sales perspective, right? There's all different kinds of roles in tech, but from a sales perspective, you want to be out in the field. You want to be out, and that's what I'm trying to promote.
By the way,
In fact, if you're
no one knows the term field sales anymore. When you say like, "Oh, the inside sales or field sales," people are like, "What do you mean field sales?"
I know.
Like, we all do everything over Zoom. Like,
I know.
not everyone, but a lot of people do most of their work over Zoom. And so the concept of field sales, it's like, what is field sales?
To me, the point is, and I've been changing the way I sell now. The last, after COVID hit, I didn't spend a lot of time relationship building. To be honest, it was just really hard to do.
Yeah.
But the last year and a half, 2 years, I've really doubled down on it, and I think it was the best thing that I could have done, honestly. Once you actually get in front of clients and partners and you're actually in the same room, it's different. The energy is different. The results are different. You're building trust. You're building relationship. It's something that it doesn't make sense in a practical accounting sense, but from a human perspective, that is what works. And still, a lot of the buyers are like our age, gray-haired folks, and they still appreciate those relationships.
Yeah.
They're younger team members, not as much, but they do.
Yeah, I don't think, but they appreciate the relationships, and they probably hang out with you just if you're a good guy to have a beer with. But you also bring something to the table, right? Like, you're a tech evangelist. You're normally on the cutting edge of technologies. You're pretty opinionated about the space. And I do think that's the evolution of tech that we're never going back away from, is you can't just be a relationship sales guy.
Exactly.
You can't just,
yes.
Like, you have to bring something to the table. So in your world, you have to bring new technology to the table. You have to be a thought leader, and you have to be opinionated. And if you can't have some technical chops, you're not relevant anymore. You're just like, and you're like, it was always that guy was kind of the punchline. Like, and Billy here will buy us dinner.
Right.
And
and
like, the only thing Billy would do would be like, he'd buy dinner and he would say something like, "Okay, so what is the timeline for this?"
Right.
So, like,
yeah.
Like, does this have budget?
Yeah.
Great, Billy.
And it's always at the end. There's always this awkward phase where the customer is just waiting. He's waiting for that question of like, when are you ready to buy? Do you think it's going to be this quarter? And, and the salesperson's trying to still be nice and, doing all that stuff. To your point, I think that's all old school. Before, let's be honest, the 20 years ago, like, you see a salesperson, they're likable, they're hungry, they got the attitude, they don't know shit about the tech, but they're showing all these other qualities.
Yeah.
And we would hire them because of that, of the human, like, of the personality that they have.
Yeah.
Now it's, where's the value? How are you going to help me? Right? Are you going to help me solve my problem? Or do you even understand my problem? I think one of the things that, like, people like you and I have done well, you are like such an incredibly technical guy. It's incredible. People outside of the valley in sales aren't that technical, but you're getting immediate credibility with clients when you're able to actually understand what their problem is. And and actually create an environment to solve the problem.
Yeah, I think there's so many great technical people, and how many great technical resources, not even salespeople, just like technical resources that you worked with. They could go in depth on a technology, but could not tie it to the business value of the customer. So I think that's the magic. It was when you can be like, okay, this is my business problem. What do you have to solve for it? I think, everything goes back to AI nowadays. I think that coupling has never been tighter, where you can just actually genuinely see, okay, if you can do this, that drives business value. If you can do this, right, it requires less resources. That's a super, though understanding it and understanding the differentiation between, one agent versus another is really difficult and really hard to do from a technical perspective. I think it is getting easier to tie technology to business value.
Yeah. Well, it needs to, because we're not going to see an acceleration in innovation and adoption with clients if we're not able to do that. If you cannot show how this technology is going to help you save money, make things more efficient, it's very, very difficult to sell, especially in this, financial climate right now where customers are doing everything to hold as much money as possible. I have customers that are losing budget, year after year. That's, and that's not typical for data center infrastructure cloud technology, right? It's supposed to go the other way.
That underscores the kind of bubble we're in right now. It's, and I mean, in every sense of the word, like, I'm in an AI bubble because most of the world I touch is AI, and budgets really don't seem that constrained, right? Like, if you can show business value and you're offering an AI technology that drives value, reduces cost, one of those two things, those things seem to be moving through very quickly.
Okay, so let me ask you this question. You live in Silicon Valley, the innovation capital of the world. All big tech is there. I've always seen before, back in the day, it was PayPal, eBay, and those, LinkedIn, doing big things. Now you see the Teslas and Apple, and those are where the big deals are happening. And you guys have a ton of those customers that are willing to take risks and are accepting of failure because they know the failure is how they're going to ultimately be successful. How do you think what you just said about when you're able to show that business value, how many non-tech big companies are actually interested? Let's just say the Fortune 500 and below that. How many of them are actually buying into some kind of AI solution or strategy and spending money on it?
I would say within the Fortune 500, the tech companies for sure are betting very heavily.
The tech companies. How about like healthcare? And
I'll get there, because healthcare was number 2 on the list. Healthcare, I think, is, you're showing dimensional returns on the investment in healthcare. Yeah, there are always going to be some concerns, but there's, a doctor-patient experience has changed dramatically. I don't know when the last time you went to the doctor was, but in all probability, there was a listening device between you and the doctor. Either it was an iPhone or it was an ambient device in the room. And they'll typically inform you of this. It's transcribing the entire conversation. And then it's uploading it into the EMR after the visit. And then it's making kind of a band of potential care options available to the doctor. And that is giving the doctor, on average, about 40% of their time back.
Of course.
Now, whether they take that time and spend more time with patients, or whether they take that time and spend more time on the golf course or with the family or whatever, it's a significant improvement in lifestyle.
Big time.
Right? Like, this just like in sales, we'd rather be with customers than, filling out reports or uploading data into the CRM. But their version of the CRM or expense reports is the EMHR, the epics
Yeah.
for Cerner's, whatever. They don't want to do that shit. And so it's if you can give that back to them, it's a game changer. And like it's a tangible value. And if you think about who runs these healthcare organizations, there's typically the most influential person, if they're not the head of the hospital, is an existing or former clinician. So they totally get it. And oh, by the way, instead of going through all these manuals, they're now using something like Open Evidence that is basically a search engine for all the relevant care. And so you've got this search engine specifically for clinicians that's going to give you the appropriate patient care search results. It's so I think
so cool. Yeah.
I think, like you take the good with the bad, just like the internet.
Yeah.
Can give me a package within 4 hours if I need, like a water pick.
Yeah.
Which I have no idea why that came to mind because I don't even use a water pick. But and there's the downside of cyberbullying. The same is true for AI. Like I think healthcare, which is in such bad shape globally, there's just a dearth of practitioners versus patients, and I think it's just going to be transformational. And I think the next big impact similar to that is going to be in education. I really do think education is so ripe for disruption,
big time,
and probably less impactful from a risk perspective, but as more it probably has more headwinds from a political perspective, right? Like I think the teachers unions will be reticent to adopt AI broadly because they'll view that as risk, which is just a necessity at this point.
Absolutely quicker the better. Wow, you hit on a lot of stuff. I haven't seen so far with at my doctor's office where they're they have a transcriber, but I just bought this. Have you? I'm sure you already know, Silicon Valley boy, but have the Plod?
Oh, I've heard of that. I haven't used any of those things. I would love to know. So like, there's so many different things to consider there. Number one, it's like,
so much to consider there, bro. Like, big time.
In California, legally, I probably can't use that thing.
Oh.
Right? Like I'm recording a conversation effectively.
Yes.
So all these things have their own kind of like...
It's an invasion of privacy for sure.
Well, it's funny because as long as you're notifying people that it's
right.
And they have the right to consent or decline, it's fine. But like as you're wearing a pin or whatever, the two things, like there's the technical barriers, like, okay, like what's the latency like? Is it going to capture the entire conversation? Is it going to capture the ambient conversation as well, which may or may not be relevant? I love those things. My concern is like, how many people's phone numbers do you know that you've met in the last 10 years?
None.
Right. And so, but 20 years ago, you knew dozens of people's phone numbers and you probably still remember most of them.
Right.
But if you don't have to know critical information about people because you've got something that's gonna do it for you, like it's it's a muscle that we exercise or don't. And so I'm concerned that we're going to see atrophy there because we see atrophy where the phone does great work for us. We see atrophy where, like, dude, my kids, their math skills suck. Like basic math skills. I'm still very good at like quick math stuff because I didn't have the benefit of having a calculator in my pocket my entire life. Right. They've had a calculator in their pocket since the day they were carrying out a phone.
Yeah. The T985.
Yeah.
Texas Instruments.
If I walked around with that in my pocket, I would gotten beat up, you know? Like
Yeah.
everyone has a
I know this isn't the use case for Plod, but what I was thinking is I seem to find myself at times at parties or just, out somewhere. And the next day I'm thinking, I know I had a great conversation with O'Shea. God, what was that podcast he was talking about? Or what was the name of that company that he was talking about? I can't remember it. I remember he was telling me I got to check it out. And, well, the problem there is that I've been overserved, but that's like a use case for me where it would be, which is a horrible thing to say. So I know that's not the use case, but that would certainly help me.
I do think that there's a value proposition there. I think, there's some technical things that like the previous tools have not been great, but also there's, the like in California, like how do you alert people that you're recording the conversation or don't, and just But I do think those are going to be more and more ubiquitous, and I also think we're going to see a downstream effect of our muscles atrophying.
Yeah, I got my brother actually. We were on vacation together this summer in Mexico, and he had these Ray-Bans on. I didn't think much of it, like whatever. We went on a boat with the kids. It was a good time. And I had gotten pushed off the boat, and everyone thought that was just hilarious. I personally didn't, because I had my phone in my pocket. I'm still pissed about that. But his glasses were recording, and it was recording the whole trip of us going down there, getting on the boat, going out, blah blah blah. And a part of me, I was, yo, dude, you should have told me that you're recording. I had no idea.
Yeah. The other part of you was like, dude, how do they fit all that tech in there?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Well, and I do think, that's just the way. There's just been so much money pumped in by Meta and Google, and that like those will become ubiquitous, and we're just going to have to deal with the downstream effects from but who doesn't assume they're being recorded at all times?
Right. Yeah.
I think Mark Sanchez has figured that out by now.
Do you find people in the Valley, do they, are they more open to having each of these meetings recorded?
Yes.
So then they can get it transcribed in meeting. Okay. So, see, people are adopting that quite a bit more, where I'll tell you, in the Midwest, at least, there are some people that do not want to be recorded. And there are companies that are saying, no, you cannot record your conversations.
Yes, that happens occasionally. It's the exception rather than the rule that people ask for it to be turned off. I would tell you, the financial services are typically more apt to ask you to turn it off. But yeah, it is. I remember when I first rolled out Gong at one of my companies, and one of the reps in Chicago, and him, was like, my customers aren't going to let this happen. I'm like, well, let's ask. And more often than not, they did. But there was more in the Midwest and the Northeast that had an aversion to it than in the West and in the Southeast and Tula. There's just they're just more accepting of it. Now the value is incredible, right? Like for me, I listen to Gong calls all the time, and I'm listening. Okay, like, am I picking up something that the reps aren't? Most of the time it's for the benefit of the rep, right? Mm-hmm. Like I want to help them. Okay, you did this. You should have been doing this. I'm looking at, okay, are all the reps singing from the same hymn book? And okay, we're not getting great reactions out of this pitch. Let's iterate a little bit, and then let's all march in the same direction.
But why not just hire really good salespeople that you don't have to babysit? If you look at what's happening, like from a sales perspective, you talk about the gray hair. Fuck, man, this past 2 years is when it really hit me. I'm working with these people that are in their young 20s, mid 20s, late 20s, and no offense, but they do not know what they don't understand the business. They don't understand how to sell to these people. And it's not their fault because they grew up in a different time and now they're trying to sell to people that are a generation older. And so there is this gap. So I understand why, but at the same time, to me, it's just hire good people and pay a little bit more versus what I am seeing is let's pay less and let's get 5 reps into Chicago instead of 2.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that?
Great question. So number one, if you're selling to AI companies, you're not hiring a 40, 50, 60-year-old great rep. Because the relationship they're going to have are with 40, 50, 60-year-old customers, right? The reality is the vast majority of these AI companies, like the consumers, are early 20s, not late 20s, right? And so you want to find someone more relatable to them, it's probably going to be a young rep. I do think you don't have to sacrifice on not hiring great reps, but the pace of innovation and the pace of competition, like we've talked about this in the past, you and I privately, like the barrier to start a new company is so low that you name a space and I'll probably tell you 10 competitors. Like, know, like we each have our favorite player in the voice agent space, but I can think of, there's Bland, Sierra, Decagon, Cresta, Finn, Vappy. I said Cresta. And then there's like Intercom was a legacy company. Like that's 8 off the top of my head. There's at least 10 more I could think of.